What's up, guys? Theo here. Doing a quick prediction for Shavkat Rahkmonov versus Stephen Thompson for UFC 296. So, obviously, Shavkat's a big favorite here. And there's a whole narrative around this fight about Stephen Thompson did not want to fight Michel Pereira. So he turned that fight down, and then the UFC gives him Shavkat. UFC kind of has a way of doing this. They don't like it when you turn down fights, and if you do, they'll probably end up giving you an even harder matchup. I don't know exactly what his reasoning for not wanting to fight Michel was. I didn't look too much into it. I don't know if it was because he was worried about Michel not making weight. Obviously, there was like an issue recently where he had a fight called off because his opponent did not make weight at all. He cares a lot about professionalism, and it's important to him that his opponent shows him respect. So I don't blame him for calling that fight off, and I don't blame him for not wanting to fight somebody that he thinks, well, maybe they won't make weight, because Michel Pereira is a pretty unprofessional fighter. I mean, and he has been known to have struggles with his weight, so that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think that he turned that fight down because he was scared and then has got Shavkat. I mean, if he did turn it down because he didn't want to fight Michel and then got Shavkat, I feel really bad for him, but I don't think Stephen Thompson would have been afraid to fight Michel Pereira. In fact, I think he would have beat Michel Pereira, but I don't think he's going to beat beat Shavkat here. Even though I do think he has really clean striking, and he has the ability to kind of like maybe win by points on the feet if he can stay away from Shavkat. But I mean, his only path to victory here is going to be to outpoint Shavkat somehow. And, you know, he's not exactly a dude that you think of as doing a ton of damage to his opponents. So I don't see it going that way. I don't see him being able to keep Shavkat away from him for 3 full rounds. If he can, it'll be very impressive, and I think there's a possibility he get a win. But I just really don't see that playing out. I mean, we haven't really seen much from Shavkat to suggest that he's just going to stand back like that. I mean, the guy likes to get people in clinches. He likes to get people down. He has a bunch of submissions on his record. I think he's just going to be too big, too strong. I don't think Stephen Thompson is going to be able to keep him away. And even though he has great takedown defense, I just don't see his path to victory here other than just fighting the absolute perfect fight and winning a decision. Generally, if a fighter has to fight like a perfect fight to win, you don't really want to bet on them, even at underdog odds. I'm not familiar with the line right now. I mean, I'm sure Shavkat is a huge favorite, probably 300 or 400. But I do think, you know, Thompson can have some success early on the feet. But I just don't see how you could bet Thompson here other than you're trying to fade the hype train. You think Shavkat's a little overrated, and you kind of want to be the dude that calls the upset. Fine, but I don't see the room for that happening here. So, I mean, you're not going to catch me trying to bet on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I have always thought he was pretty overrated. Not saying he's not good, and I'm not saying he's not where he needs to be in the rankings or whatnot, but people tend to talk about him as if he is the greatest. Like, you hear this all the time. You hear people say, Stephen Wonderboy is the greatest striker in UFC history. You hear that literally all the time when you hear people talk about him. They say, like, people die on that hill that he's the best striker in UFC history. I mean, maybe they mean technical striker, I don't know, but he doesn't exactly have tons of UFC knockouts or anything like that. So I think from a fan perspective, he's fairly overrated. I think people really overestimate his abilities. I think it helps that he's good looking and he's like really friendly. It kind of makes people like him more, and I think that makes them overestimate what he's really capable of. But the thing is, you wouldn't be picking Stephen Wonderboy Thompson right now if he was to go against, say, like Gilbert Burns again, right? When he fought Gilbert Burns, I remember a lot of people saying he was going to beat Gilbert Burns. I'm like, why? Like, why? What is making people think that that's a possibility? So you're telling me that people were going to pick him against, I mean, you know, like, I just don't see any way he wins this fight, really. I feel like it's going to go similar to the Gilbert Burns fight. I feel like he's going to eventually get pushed against the cage and TKO'd or dragged down and subbed. I don't see him fighting at perfect karate point fight for 3 rounds, keeping the dude away from him while he, you know, I mean, you see in the embedded that he is teaching part-time now. He's teaching kids. So he's, you know, obviously he has an end in sight for his UFC career. I know he wants to work up towards the title. He was recently talking about that. But guys, come on. Everybody knows that's not going to happen. He's not going to be UFC champion at this point in his career. I think he's nearing 40 years old, which he looks great for 40, and I don't think he's, like, completely shot or anything. But I just don't see his path to victory here. He's got to fight a perfect fight. I don't see that happening against a skilled, patient, powerful opponent in Shavkat. So unless you're just trying to bet on him to derail a hype train, which is always, I mean, again, I said it literally in the video I said about this before this. Anytime you have a guy like Shavkat who's like undefeated in the UFC and has a ton of hype and he's supposed to be the next big thing, people are always more likely to actually pick against them in that scenario than they would in other scenarios. Because there's this reverse psychology thing where they want to be the dude that called the upset. And if you want to bet on him for that purpose, fine, but I don't see there being like a realistic possibility where he like knocks Shavkat out, or I mean, what is he gonna? He's not gonna submit Shavkat. So you're either betting on him to knock Shavkat out or to outpoint him. And in a game where damage is kind of now seen as key, I just don't see that happening. Nobody has really been able to hurt Shavkat that badly, you know? He got into a fucking war with Jeff Neal, and he ended up beating the shit out of Jeff Neal and subbing him. So I don't think that the power is going to be an issue. I don't see Wonder Boy like popping him with a perfect combo and knocking him out. It could happen, but I just don't see where your argument is. I think if you're betting Steven Wonder Boy here, I think you're making a Hail Mary bet. So I'm going to go with Shavkat. I think Shavkat's probably going to submit him. Maybe TKO, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, I'll come with more videos soon for 296. Keep it locked in.